the Pelican Brief with your host, David Tapman.
Welcome to the Pelican Brief. I am your host, David Tapman, and this is what I thought was going to be the final legislative update through the Pelican Brief for the 2023 regular session of the Louisiana Legislature. That may not be the case. Lots of things happened toward the end of the session. I thought we'd do a wrap-up a few days after the session just to talk about what had happened and what we expected the governor to do, but the end of session was just crazy. And on the very last day of the session, not on the last day, in the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the legislative session, a lot happened. There was a lot of fuss about the budget, which, as we have covered on this podcast throughout our reporting, was always a big issue. There were a lot of factions here and there that are sort of at war with each other right now. And so this may not be the last episode of the Pelican Brief for the 2023 regular session of the Louisiana Legislature. So we could have a possible special session sometime on redistricting based on the United States Supreme Court ruling on the Alabama redistricting lawsuit. We could also have a veto override session, and probably the primary bill that would be the subject of that session, although all veto bills would be up for consideration, but the gender-affirming care bill is one that the governor has vetoed and that legislators passed overwhelmingly and could be the subject of a veto session. But for now, we don't know. So what we're going to do is we are going to talk about this situation that we're in right now in the end of the 2023 regular session of the Louisiana Legislature that ended on June the 8th, right at 6 p.m. The budget was passed, I believe, at 5:50 p.m. on June 8th, and the supplemental bills and other bills were passed in subsequent moments after that. So, but let's go with that because that's how the session ended with a bang. So as we reported throughout the session, money was a major issue right up until the very end. And so we're going to talk and dig a little bit deeper into that. And I think there's going to be a lot more to come because the governor's already issued some line item vetoes. And just so you know, the Louisiana governor has the power to line item vetoes in appropriations bills. He can't do that in any other bills, but he can, for example, take a legislator's project out or take a project that he doesn't feel like is worthy. He can punish people with it if he chooses to. I'm going to let you determine whether or not some of his line item vetoes so far were punishment or whether they were just due course. So a couple of bills of interest that happened during the legislative session. You probably read a lot about them. Senate Bill 7 by Senator Heather Cloud of Turkey Creek would require libraries to set up a system that requires a minor's parent or guardian to select whether the minor is permitted to check out certain content. And it would require libraries to list the library's policy on the content and sources accessible to minors, and that there would be a process in place where the parents could control what the minors see. Now, this was built as those against it said it was censorship. Those that were for it said it was parents having the ability to decide what their children see and don't see. I'll let you make up the decision for that, how you feel about it. Obviously, I mentioned it a little earlier. House Bill 648 by Representative Gabe Furman of Pollock, Louisiana, was the ban on gender-affirming care for minors. This legislation was actually defeated in the Senate Health and Welfare Committee on a 4-3 vote. But the bill was resurrected through a procedural process that recommitted the bill to a different committee dealing with the civil aspects of the legislation. And so the bill passed that committee. Actually, it passed it unanimously because the opponents of the bill didn't show up for the committee meeting. And then it passed the Senate and was returned to the House. and was sent to the governor, and the governor vetoed that bill. There's another bill a couple other bills we'll go through. House Bill 466 by Representative Dodie Horton out of Shreveport was referred to always as the Don't Say Gay bill. It was tagged by those involved that would create a ban on discussions of gender and sexual identity in K-12 classrooms. That bill also passed through the process. House Bill 90 by Representative John Stefanski of Crowley was legislation that provides for the penalty of life imprisonment if someone is caught with 28 grams, that's about an ounce for those of us who know that, or more of the synthetic opioid. The bill was amended to give people, there was a lot of pressure back on life for small amounts. So the bill was amended to give people between 5 and 40 years if they dealt up to 28 grams. And then there was a tiered increase for greater weight of the synthetic opioid. Those convicted now of dealing with 250 grams or more could receive a life sentence. 250 grams is a lot. I'm not sure the math, but it's like 8.5 pounds. It's a lot of fentanyl, kill a lot of people. So again, not an editorial comment, that's up to you, but 10 pounds, 8 to 10 pounds of fentanyl could do a lot of damage in this state. There's another bill, Senate Bill 162 by Senator Patrick McMath of Covington, that would crack down on the use of social media by minors, potentially requiring age verification for Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms. The bill was modeled after a very controversial law that was passed in Utah. Another issue we talked a lot about during the regular session of the legislature was efforts to try to improve property insurance markets in Louisiana. There were several bills that passed the legislature in an effort to make Louisiana more attractive for markets for prospective insurers. Some passed, some didn't. One was vetoed. So a couple that did pass is assignment of benefits. This is the whole Apex Roofing thing and a Houston law firm that came in and people thought they were signing a document that said their roof was going to get fixed when in fact they were signing up for a class action lawsuit. That bill passed the legislature. There's also another bill that modernized the rate-making system in Louisiana. And basically, it still provides for a use and file system, but gives the Commissioner of Insurance 45 days to respond to a filing by an insurer in the state of Louisiana. This is going to be important to try to get more markets into Louisiana because right now anyone that's followed our podcast or anything in Louisiana knows we have major problems. So there's another bill that was actually pretty interesting. It was the foreign land ownership ban bill. This bill is 537 by Representative Hodges. It provides that beginning August the 1st, 2023, no foreign adversary or person connected with a foreign adversary may purchase, lease, or acquire a movable property for the state. It further provided that parties in a contract may rescind the contract prior to the transfer of a movable property if determined the purchaser or lessee is a foreign adversary and connected with that foreign adversary. So this deals with state countries like China, Cuba, Iran. The biggest pushback came from a lot of the foreign individuals living in Louisiana that teach at colleges and universities, at schools across our state that have moved here and want to buy a house or lease a house or an apartment or whatever. This was a pretty broad-ranging bill, but it was dialed back a little bit, but we'll see how that goes. I'm going to stop right here. We do not advertise, but I'm going to give another plug to my friend Jeremy Alford, the publisher and editor of La Politics. Jeremy Alford is a rock star, and he produces a number of things. La Politics Weekly is the insider's scoop on everything going on in Louisiana, and the Tracker is a supplement to that. And so, other than listening to the Pelican Brief, they have the most significant coverage of what's happening in Louisiana politics. And I'm sort of kidding there because Jeremy is accomplished. He is in a number of trade publications and campaign professionals, donors, people who are thinking of running for the legislature. They all understand that that's what you need to subscribe to know what's the inside scoop. So he also has a couple of books. You may want to check them out. The Last Constitution is his most recent work. This is a book based on former Speaker of the House and Louisiana legend Bubba Henry's memoirs. And a great book. We helped co-fund that because we thought it was so important to capture that information. And he also co-authored the book, The Long Shot, which is a story about how how John Bell Edwards won the governor's race. And he was a long shot when he got into it. So go to lawpolitics.com. Tell him you were sent by David Tapman in the Pelican Brief. He won't give you a discount, but we like him to know where he gets his business from. So back to what was happening in the legislative session. So let's talk about what I believe is one of the big issues of the legislative session, film. House Bill 562 by Speaker Schexnayder, which extends the motion picture investor tax credit program, was passed by the legislature overwhelmingly. The legislature extends the sunset by 6 years to 2031. It also does a number of other things that are incredibly important, which is to require that promotional graphics be moved up in the final product of films and in television. It provides for digital packages where actors and directors talk about how great it was to film in Louisiana, what a great crew base we have, and how great the food is, and whatever else that helps promote tourism and keeps things in people coming to Louisiana based on film activity. Many areas benefit from the program regardless of whether the project was filmed there. So there is a portion of this bill that would help track those expenditures where they happen, like lumber from North Louisiana, caterers from South Louisiana, and so many other things that make film go in Louisiana, but may not be located in the exact area where the film is being produced. So the program overall is called the Motion Picture Investor Tax Credit. It brings billions of dollars each year in investment to our state. It's a clean industry that provides high quality, high paying jobs and helps reverse the brain drain in our state. That bill is on the governor's desk, was approved by both bodies, overwhelmingly by both bodies of the legislature, and I expect the governor to sign it any day now. So what didn't make it during the special session? So one of the bills, a bill backed by Attorney General Jeff Landry, House Bill 321, who would have made certain juvenile records available to the public. There were those that criticized this bill as racist because of where it focuses its attention and it was generated, but Representative Debbie Villo described it as an effort to tamp down crime in the areas that most need it. Another bill that failed that was pretty high profile was House Bill 131. It would have eliminated the permitting requirements for carrying a concealed firearm. The bill, which had been brought before it died in a Senate committee in the last week of the session, was carried by Representative Danny McCormick of Oil City. They moved to table it rather than accept what he viewed as an unfriendly amendment. He said, let's just table it. So the requirement would have basically taken away any requirements that you have to take any sort of training or education before you carry a concealed handgun. Now, I do want to make it a point that you can open carry in Louisiana with no training, but you can't conceal carry. So I just don't want anybody to get in trouble. Don't put it in your pocket. Get a holster and carry it on your hip. Now, there are lots of places that you cannot bring a weapon to, so that's up to you to go find out. But remember, you can still open carry in the state of Louisiana with no training requirements. You just can't conceal carry. There was another bill that was pretty high profile, and it was a bill that would have abolished the death penalty in Louisiana. So John Bell Edwards came out and supported this bill as House Bill 228. It died in a House committee. Um, that committee changed over the last year. Speaker Scheck-Snyder made a couple of changes. The panel became more conservative before the session in an effort to get tougher on crime. Crime's a major issue in the state of Louisiana, and I think there was a real effort to try to sort of make some changes that would help make it safer for law-abiding citizens to live in our state. And so when Edwards came out in public support of abolishing capital punishment, it was the first time this spring. He's always never really came out hard one way or the other, but it is interesting to note that this bill failed. It was House Bill 228 by Representative Joe Marino, and it is important to note that while the bill failed, nearly all death row inmates have applied and asked the governor to commute their sentence. Now, the AG and Jeff Landry have vowed to fight against that. Other gubernatorial candidates have vowed to fight against that. Remember, in Louisiana, there is a provision that the governor just can't provide a commutation from the death sentence or the death penalty to life in prison or pardon them. It has to come as a recommendation from the Pardons and Parole Board. And so a lot of things have to happen. Don't expect anything to happen soon with that. And it's been over a decade since Louisiana's put anyone to death anyway. Another issue that was big during the session that again failed was the effort to raise Louisiana's minimum wage from the federally mandated floor of $7.25 an hour. It's failed repeatedly over the years, and this year was no different. The House Labor and Industrial Relations Committee voted last month to kill House Bill 374, which proposed raising the minimum wage to $10 an hour starting in 2024. This is a really interesting issue because I see in my work more and more people who were previously against raising the minimum wage are beginning to support it. I'm not saying the majority of those people, the majority of people in Louisiana are supportive of it, but if you make $10 an hour, you make, I'm going to just ballpark it, say without overtime, $20,000 a year, ballpark, right? If you get benefits, that's all helpful. It's hard to live on $20,000 a year. And even if you're a household of two people, that's $40,000 a year. If you have kids or even a dog, because my dog's really expensive, you can't make it. And so I also don't know how many people are actually getting paid $10 an hour now. I mean, I know that it's hard to get people to come to work. And so it's going to be an interesting issue because it's beginning to take a little bit of a swing in public opinion. So we'll see how it goes. Another big bill, or actually group of bills that failed this year were bills aimed at adding exceptions to Louisiana's strict abortion ban. They were looking for exceptions for things like rape or incest, even issues where miscarriages and other kinds of pregnancies that are being treated under the ban. I think the outcome solidified the future of Louisiana's abortion laws, which are some of the strictest in the nation. Another bill that failed that was in the news a lot was the hemp industry crackdown. So House Speaker Clay Scheck-Snyder, again, the Speaker, he is a Republican from Gonzales. He actually abandoned his bill, which he was going to tweak the rules that govern the hemp industry after facing a backlash because the hemp industry has just grown and expanded so much, and there may have been some unintended consequences that emerged as a result of that bill. So it would have definitely created some guardrails for the hemp industry, but those people who wanted to ban it altogether fought so hard that the Speaker pulled his bill and allowed other bills to go forward that would have been stricter. None of those bills made it. And so I think when we look at the hemp industry, I think you're going to see an even greater expansion of these products, because right now you can walk into most gas stations, almost all vape stores, smoke shops across the state, and it is proliferated. A little editorial comment here. I find it interesting that everyone fought so hard to keep cannabis from being approved for recreational use. I think it is because we didn't do that you've seen such an expansion and just it's crazy on how you can get hemp products that would get you way more stoned than any other products. And I don't use hemp, I don't use cannabis, but I'm told this stuff is powerful and it's everywhere. So it's going to be interesting because the next legislature is clearly going to have to address it in some way. And I expect that the hemp industry will organize and get better as we move forward at bringing their messages to legislators. So another big issue that we talked about, carbon capture. So both you had people who wanted to ban carbon capture altogether. You had people who wanted to do things like restrict any sort of platforms on Lake Maurepas and other specific areas to prevent those things from being built. There's a big carbon capture project that is supposed to be in the Lake Maurepas area. All of those efforts failed. And this was a big win for the carbon capture industry, the oil and gas industry, and the petrochemical industry. I don't know what carbon capture is, but I will tell you I have a lot of friends in the oil industry, and there is not unanimity in how they feel about it. Some think it's a great idea, some think it's dangerous. And so we'll see how it goes, but we got it, and here we go. Another bill that you heard a lot about because of some news stories was the underage bar entry bill. The bill was filed in response to the January death of an LSU student. You may remember Madison Brooks. Senate Bill 194 was defeated after it was deferred by a committee over concerns that it would financially harm bars in Louisiana. It was watered down so bad because, so let's talk about it a little bit. A lot of the people who work in bars are college students. So you have college students who are 18 years old or 19 years old or 20 years old serving drinks in a bar. A lot of the bars and restaurants across the state, not just the college bars, but they were concerned about the fact that they wouldn't be able to find people who would fill those positions. In addition to that, what was left of the bill after many of those age restrictions were taken out of the bill were basically liability issues. And in the end, that wasn't going to go at the heart of what I think the parents of Madison Brook and what Senator Mizell wanted. And so the bill did not pass. So, and now we get to the major happenings in the final moment of legislative session. With only minutes to spare, the legislature passed all of its spending package in a series of very contentious votes. So less contentious on the Senate floor, but really contentious on the House floor. In fact, in my 34 years of working in the Louisiana legislature, it was one of the top 3 most contentious moments I've seen. They all seem to happen on the House floor. You don't see it as much on the Senate floor, but we've seen it. So the $45 billion budget package was approved in the final minutes. There were accusations of backdoor deals, punishment for those legislators who didn't go along with the original efforts to support Senate Concurrent Resolution 3 to bust the cap. The package that passed did include $2,000 supplemental pay hikes for K through 12 public school teachers. But let's be clear, it was a supplemental pay. It wasn't the kind of pay that teachers wanted. It's also important to note that at the end of the session, in a last-minute move that I don't think anyone saw until it came, was a $100 million cut to the Department of Health and Hospitals. Now, people are so upset about that Senator Fred Mills is calling a Senate Health and Welfare Committee that you will want to tune into. You can either watch it live on the website, the state legislative website, and it's going to be interesting to see how those cuts are going to be fulfilled. The governor has pledged to fix it, but we're going to have to see what that looks like. So now that the session is over, you can go back and watch all of the fun, all of the action through archived video of the proceedings on the state website. And that state website is on your screen. It's www.legis.la.gov. Or you can just Google Louisiana Legislature and it'll come up. It's a fantastic resource. And so you can also, there's so many ways to file. You can read the bills. Stay tuned to the news reports because there'll be more vetoes coming up and potentially a veto session. So we'll take a look at that. So we are the Pelican Brief. You can follow us on social media. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Our social media handle on all of those platforms is @PelicanBrief225. Just remember, that's how you get the notification whenever we release an episode. If you go to any place that you watch or listen to your podcasts and you subscribe, you will get notifications whenever a new episode comes out. And if you do it on social media, you'll also get a social media post. You can also watch us on YouTube. Some of you may be watching us on YouTube right now. And that handle is @ThePelicanBrief225. Some people prefer to watch. Some people prefer to listen on the podcasting platform. So please like, subscribe, and share. Tell your friends. So just remember, you know the rule. If you have a good take, go to social media, tell us about it. You can call me a clown, make fun of us. You can say it was a great show, whatever you want. Go in, share, do all the things that you would do. If you have a good take, we will likely mention you on the show. If you have a great take, I'm going to invite you on to debate you, to share information with our audience, whatever it is. And so just let us know. And until next week, or until the legislature and the governor do something, we are the Pelican Brief.
The Pelican Brief is an off-script production.